Welcome to ES Ascension News. Our theme, Consubstantiality. Dear Ascending Family, the planet has entered another intense magnum opus stage of the galactic zodiac law being transmitted from the Sun, which is currently being directed through the constellation of Libra. These stages of transmitting alchemical forces are to aid consciousness evolution, and they are qualities which have never been previously exposed to this planet. We have begun an evolutionary stage which alters the relationship between the spirit and the physical body through a phase transition known in alchemy as sublimation. Sublimation is used to describe an exchange of bodies and spirits similar to a laboratory phase transition made between solids and gases. The process of sublimation is to purify the primary elements within mixtures. The product of this process is called consubstantiality. This is the alchemical process which becomes aligned to an essence, frequency, and element that mixes with substance and brings a new type of creation, a new composite of raw material to the earth. Consubstantiality was used by the Essenes and Gnostics to describe phase transitions in spiritual alchemy. For purposes of clarity and context, this term was used before the First Council of Nicene's adoption of the word. In Gnostic text, the word is used with these meanings: identity of substance between generating and generated, identity of substance between things generated of the same substance, identity of substance created between the divine partners of an Aeonic pair. When we apply the context of the word consubstantiality to the comprehension of consciousness as intelligent energy that seeks to manifest itself in a quantum world, the meaning of the word changes. This phase of consciousness evolution combines the dual aspect of the spiritualization of the body and the corporalization of the spirit into the matter world. Many different off-planet forces are descending into matter world as the planet is ascending through the harmonic scale and opening into higher dimensions of future timelines. As these forces of the spirit may become corporal through a human body, the human body can become fixed and consubstantial with it. To be consubstantial with something is to be identified, associated, and enmeshed with it. If we are not aware of our thoughts and actions, we may become consubstantial with undesirable forces without realizing it. One may choose to be consubstantial with the Christ consciousness and therefore embody the Trinity of the Holy Father, the Holy Mother, the Holy Spirit as the Holy Son and Daughter. However, this embodiment may not be recognized by most people on the earth. Many humans on the earth are indifferent to their spiritual growth, or are unable to discern the world of forces through mind control. Therefore, they are susceptible to become consubstantial, of the same substance in consciousness, with imposter spirit forces. This is to describe the identification with the same substance made as consciousness, which is brought into the physical through the human body. As a person or group identify their own ego personality with these varieties of collective forces, they become one with them and align to that group consciousness and its mental body schema. Therefore, the person or group becomes a primary vehicle for that force or gestalt of consciousness and carry out that quality of mind. At this time, whatever force we become identified with, we will become fixed with and potentially consubstantial. Our elemental body will undergo forms of alchemical change which relate to our consciousness shift, either ascending or descending. If our mind is identified with the imposter spirit, our body will become consubstantial with it and embody that force. This will harden our heart and close our mind. If our mind is identified with our inner Christ spirit, the body will become consubstantial with that and purify and cleanse itself to embody that force. This will soften our heart and open our mind to higher consciousness. Sanity versus insanity. The recent magnitude of stellar explosions and concentrated solar flare impacts to the magnetic field have consequences in the global brain and collective consciousness, thus impacting the individual human brain through a variety of factors that will either reorganize thoughts into coherently integrated patterns of sanity, or collapse thoughts into disjointed and fragmented chaos, insanity. This cycle is leading us to the choice point of holding sanity or insanity as thought forms, and we must choose. The state of mind we choose leads to the personal patterns of energetic influence. Depending on our thought forms, we will either be protected or bombarded from the collective behaviors that are manifested from collective forces in the environment. Our personal state of mind will reflect how those collective forces of chaos impact us or not. Can you hold peace in the chaos? Sanity is defined as remaining mentally open and mentally flexible while choosing spiritually healthy behaviors, thoughts, and attitudes. Insanity is defined as shutting down into robotic and mentally rigid beliefs of spiritually abusive behaviors, thoughts, and attitudes. Mental rigidity leads to mental breakdowns and nervous system damage that will manifest into a variety of levels of disassociation, which potentially lead to psychotic break. Psychotic break is created from extreme traumatic stress or pain placed on the body, brain, and nervous system. Through recent changes in the law of structure, the bifurcation of time, this routes group consciousness into aligning with various stations in the timeline. These stations make further conjunctions into specific corridors of time. This poses a great challenge on the surface of our planet, as well as for all of humanity. The transformation in the instruction sets of DNA messaging made to the cell for long-term information storage is transpiring at the individual, collective, and planetary levels of consciousness. Long-term information and cellular records are the equivalent of memories. All memories in which we identify as a human, with a race, with a religion, with a history, or whatever our accumulated beliefs may be, are undergoing alteration. In the functioning brain, to access short-term memory is in fact to access the accumulated behaviors that were recorded in a vast assembly of nerve cells and their associated molecules in the body. Therefore, this phase stimulates great shifts in our memories and within all capacities related to our brain functioning. Our brain function is deeply related to the central nervous system and the neuronal pathways, and how well our brain can function along with our nerves stands at the core of all common levels of mental illness. This is the time to stay aware to keep your brain and nerves healthy and strong. The war on the mind and brain. Recently, in the war over consciousness on Earth, we have met the seeds of the anti-human architecture or anti-Christ agenda. This agenda is essentially to make the human brain a computerized machine of artificial intelligence programmed by off-planet controllers. This explains the rapidly growing popularity of transhumanism to create artificial cyborg consciousness in humans. Given recent changes to the 3 lower energy centers that comprise the triad of egoic levels of function, all things related to brain activity, mental body functioning, and their recorded memories throughout past, present, and future are highlighted now. Most of us on the consciousness path are certain from direct experience that the mind cannot be reduced to just the mechanical function of the brain. Although most of the current neuroscience and the negative alien agenda would have you believe this is the case with statements like, the human brain is a machine which alone accounts for all of our actions, our most private thoughts and beliefs. All our actions are products of the activity of our brains. This is by Sir Colin Blakemore, a British neurobiologist. Naturally, what this statement ignores completely is the consciousness intelligence of our spiritual bodies as the source of what transmits that frequency information to the brain. This is similar to how a radio wave is transmitted from a station and picked up by a tuner or receiver. The level of functioning receivers we have in our neuronal pathways and nerve-brain synapses determine whether or not the consciousness intelligence can be received by the brain. Since most people do not know how to communicate with their soul, their higher intelligence energies are not deciphered by their brain. This is why the negative alien agenda goes to great lengths to create nerve damage, scramble frequencies, and create dysfunctional brains in the people of the earth through chemtrails and an array of poisons, parasites, and pharmaceuticals. If we disconnect from our soul, we are incapable of accessing the consciousness memory that is left stored in our cellular record. When we are soul disconnected, we become a body consciousness shell memory, which will loop itself without intelligent biological expansion of energy. This is the problem we face with the intentional degradation of human consciousness. When the dissociation from our spirit happens, the mental body fragments, which result in the digression of human intelligence into a primitive, subconscious animal. People are told they are free citizens, that they have progressed through their brain to be intelligently brilliant, and that humanity is at the top of its technological discovery in the history books. This is a grand deception and an outright lie. Essentially, what we have left is a collective level of the human physical body that is now a shell for possessing forces of slave labor and has lost its true humanity and universal connection to life. Through the bifurcation of amplified polarities, humanity is accelerating into the terrain where the massive consciousness struggle is taking place over who gets control over the mind. Basically, we are in a war to control our mind, to prevent us from recovering our memories. Will one's mind be programmed and controlled to run mental beliefs of bondage and suffering, which leads to insanity? Or will we be able to recover sanity and to retain memories as we choose to consciously participate to free our minds in order to achieve liberation? This is humanity's greatest challenge on earth today. Everything depends on what we choose, so that we remain mentally flexible, mentally open, and change the locus of control from our ego brain to our loving and compassionate heart. The sentience of our higher consciousness intelligence, which has its locus of control in the heart, is the far superior intelligence to recover and use to access all of our memories throughout time. Humanitarian values. Recently, our planet shifted into the dimensional law of the soul mental principle of service to others, which is a group consciousness soul matrix frequency. Many people need to be re-educated in these humanitarian values, which are now in governance of this dimension. Humanitarianism is the behavior of service to others that has a capacity to feel empathy and compassion for others and is aimed at benefiting another person, other groups, or the planet. Conversely, egotism is a behavior that is acted out for personal gain or service to self. To regain an understanding of humanitarian values, we must learn empathy and compassion. Empathy involves understanding feelings and the capacity to feel the emotional states of others. So the way emotions are characterized in one's personal experience is how emotions will be characterized for others having similar experiences. The ability to imagine oneself as another person, to be in their position, and be able to feel what they may be feeling in those circumstances, standing in another person's shoes, is a creative process which develops compassion. Empathy is distinctly different from sympathy, pity, and attachment to negative emotional dramas, which act like a viral infection. Empathic concern is the feeling of compassion or concern for another, the wish to see others better off or with happier lifestyles, fulfilling their potential. Pity is feeling that another is in trouble and in the need of help, and that they cannot fix their problems themselves, described as feeling sorry for someone. Emotional contagion is when a person, especially babies, mob frenzy, leader of the pack, or group consciousness, catches the emotions that others are showing without recognizing this is happening. This is the subconscious mind resonating with that emotional state and instinctively reacting. Emotional contagion can be dangerous. This is being at the whim of undisciplined emotional states, generating automatic impulses from the pain body, which can erupt into spontaneous violence when a person has psychotic break. The goal of spiritual development is to be fully present and aware of the mental and emotional states, and to consciously choose the psycho-emotional states one expresses, thus controlling impulses and being self-aware. Lack of empathy. The controllers of the negative alien agenda can be best understood as a psychopathic personality or identity profile with a lack of empathy and no feeling of remorse. Narcissistic personalities and psychopaths have little to no remorse for the harm, destruction, or killing they cause any person, place, or thing. This lack of empathy is characterized by the inability to feel, to experience emotional states, or to discern what another life form or person may be feeling. Lack of empathy is a mutation in the DNA of a species that has been disconnected from its soul spirit, and thus suffers from genetic damage and soul fragmentation. Most of the negative aliens and those humans serving the negative alien agenda are unable to feel, experience, or express higher emotions, such as emotive and empathic states of loving kindness or compassion. Essentially, with a lack of empathy as an archontic deception value system, it is easy to program killing machines that have no remorse for their actions and no care for the consequences of their actions. They want to shape and create as many human beings with a lack of empathy as possible. The negative aliens have downloaded their genetic mutations through mind control technologies, which manifest as a severe lack of empathy within the collective consciousness of the human race in order to control the planet to serve their agenda. A major mind control mechanism is used to enforce the cycles of victim-victimizer in the population of Earth. That way, the human race is regularly preoccupied in beliefs of internal or external violence, either playing out the roles of the victim or the role of victimizer. Disconnected soul equals no emotional body. From the genetic level of their form body templates, lack of empathy is stemming from not having an emotional body. The higher feeling and emotional sensory bodies are the primary functions of the soul matrix. Without a soul body, this type of disconnected being, whether human or non-human, has no feeling body, except for the lower functioning of the instinctual mind. The second chakra functions as the instinctual mind and thus becomes the substitute for the instinctual levels that are expressed in some type of perceived emotional state. In truth, this instinctual mind, also known as the pain body, is not an emotional body. It has been mutated from soul damage and become a distorted center of aberrant, miasmatic energies and instincts that are misunderstood as emotions. These states are not true self-generated emotions. They are instinctual states absorbed through the collective unconsciousness. A human body that is disconnected from the soul is like an empty shell with a repository of basic instincts. One may not experience true states of love or the full emotional spectrum until they begin to connect with their soul matrix bodies, or until they have been able to experience a loving and open heart center from being incarnated with this soul-spirit connection. Many have lost their soul connection from early experiences of extreme trauma and suffering, satanic ritual abuse, child rape and molestation. This abuse starts in early childhood, using the archontic deception behavior strategies of the negative alien agenda to create a cycle of repeated victim-victimizer in the population of Earth. When a human is consistently victimized as young as possible, he or she grows into a victimizer. This enforces the repetition of this abusive pattern to create more narcissists, psychopaths, and traumatized people that are dissociated from other people and lack empathy. Disassociated people are easy to mind control and possess. The heart center is the connection point for the soul. Some genetics are more predisposed to have this capacity to feel and have an open heart than others. Those genetics that are fully capable of feeling and generating love and higher emotional states are those that have retained their inner spirit's Christ seed atom. People that are incapable of love and feelings of empathy eventually create a black mind, which manifests into a black heart. Black mind leads to black heart. We have a lot of people on earth that are recovering black magicians and are attempting to rehabilitate into mastering love as a force through the requirement of the service to others as law. It is a part of their experience to find their heart and find the spirit of humility through being of service as a humble servant to the planet and its peoples, and forsaking their service to self, personal gains, and negative ego. In these conditions, as a humble servant to God, with a heart filled to help God's purpose of love on the earth, they will be answered with offers of rehabilitation. Again, the key is always the purity of the heart. This fact will never be derailed, even when facing incredible artificial intelligence technology and the variety of negative alien agenda mind control consciousness templates generated from that technology. Consciousness technology can be used to harm humanity or help humanity. The choice is with each of us in the purity of our heart-based intention. This cannot be faked. Either it is or it is not. Consciousness technology without mastering love from and for God and for all of God's creatures creates a black heart through power abuses. A black heart is an astral chakra that is blocked, black, and running reversals, which is called dark flowering. So what are some of the behaviors and actions that can manifest a black heart? What leads to the subsequent dark flowering in a personal body, a collective body, a spiritual group or community situation, so that it becomes virally infected? Greed, avarice, contempt for others, judgment, discrimination, elitist beliefs. Personal gain of service to self as a priority over the service to the whole at others' expense. Intent to cause harm, use intimidation or threats, power abuse or controller. Irrational fears of personal security, which indicate lack of faith in God or lack of direct connection experience that promotes continual poverty consciousness. Addiction through any means, drugs, alcohol, gluttony, sex, cigarettes, any substance which you allow to habitually control you into addiction and to which one loses control over their bodily impulses. Stealing, lying, cheating, or acts of denial that perpetrate falsity or give false impressions, seeking fame and personal glorification. Emotional dramas and hysterias repeated through unhealed victim-victimizer programming. Having attachments to purchasing power or material comforts for which one sells their soul or ethics. Believing that one is a savior, messiah, or guru, or that one is responsible for an act of healing, study, or modality, or that you are more special or important than others. Holding attachment to third-dimensional material objects and one's creations in any way that one falsely thinks that one is the absolute creator over these objects, over God's will or universal law. Suspicion, paranoia, deceptions, and desperate holding on to things that you need to let go of and surrender because of fear or personal terror. Any kind of harm or abuse inflicted upon another or the self, especially with ritualistic intent, indignation, or self-righteousness. Blaming karma or past lives for irresponsible actions in the current lifetime, being unaccountable for one's behaviors. Copywriting spiritual body parts, intimidating and prosecuting others that have this knowledge, which belongs to universal laws, and are therefore in the public domain for all human beings. How can we copyright control over Christ consciousness, Buddha, or God? Holding terror or fear for oneself, for loved ones or family members, omnipresent anxiety and trauma, leading to disassociation and lack of empathy. Pride, such as, I did all of this work and I need to be compensated for that and given credit for all I have done. Or, I am above that and better than those people. The treacherous behaviors that set up one's downfall as outlined in the houses of ego. Abuse of power and resources entrusted through spiritual stewardship and leadership, which represents Christ. No resource is ever in ownership. Ownership and possession of material things are a fabrication and illusion of third-dimensional materialism. Satanists believe in material power as the first and only priority. These are all negative ego warning signals in one's behavior that should be rehabilitated immediately with attitudinal adjustments. If we find ourselves often expressing anger, hatred, or unforgiveness to others, in severe stress and losing impulse control, such in these examples, we are in a dangerous state of mind. A dangerous state of mind is also a rigid and closed mind. Change starts within. Identify the archontic deception behavior and apply the God-sovereign free antidote behavior to transform mentally rigid behaviors into open-minded and spiritually healthy behaviors. For more information, see God's sovereign free behaviors in the Ascension Glossary. Study of moral code. The study of moral code, imparting spiritual truth, and living within spiritual ethics is clearly and sorely required. Many abuses go easily unnoticed due to the warped thinking we have programmed in a third-dimensional narcissistic society. This behavioral checkpoint is our personal responsibility, and it does not matter how advanced the consciousness template is. If this part of our ego wounds have not been cleared and healed, we will be infected, and these wounds will be used against us. This becomes increasingly important as more spiritual power and spiritual resources are given by spiritual light intelligence, the Christ consciousness. The more spiritual and consciousness power we embody, the more responsibility we have to be ethical, moral, transparent, honest, and aligned to the intent, consent, and authority of service to God, service to others. The issue is giving it our very best every day. When we live from our heart, we ask daily what we can do to serve God and oneness. We do not have to have all the answers. With a goal of world humanism, serving a humanitarian philosophy such as the law of one, we must get the ego out of the driver's seat. If we do not, we will be subjected to a process of descending into creating a black mind and an even blacker heart. We must pay heed to Christian-based ethics without all the dogma, mental rigidity, and ego judgment of organized religion. It is in this space that our mental and behavioral guideline is genuinely clarified. In the Christ principle, what would the Christ do? How would the Christ think and behave as a humanitarian? What is my responsibility in this moment to be true to my heart, to live ethically and in harmony with life? This ethical thinking and virtuous behavior will ultimately protect you. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of the cultivation of ethics and virtues as spiritual powers of protection at this time on the earth. This seems to be a gaping hole in many spiritual teachings missed throughout due to secrecy, unethical, untrustworthy, and immoral behaviors from severely wounded people with power-hungry egos. Their rigid minds and hearts turn black from misconduct. This is called a black heart or dark flowering, and is exploited by the artificial intelligence of the negative alien agenda that use predator mind control to make humans subservient and shut down. The black mind of negative ego destroys everything in its wake. Those of us that are called to this knowledge have been called here to help support the Christos mission on earth. We are being entrusted to hold more consciousness awareness and learn how to help return the planetary architecture back to human and Christ consciousness hands through allowing our body to be an open source structure that houses the spirits of Christ. Loving heart is salvation. Does this mean that religious organizations or others who are ignorant of this artificial intelligence and alien technology are all dark-flowered with black hearts? Are all the ascension 5D'ers floating in the astral plane dark-flowered? No, of course not. However, the challenge is knowing in one's heart, are you doing your best? And are you spending time developing your personal loving relationship to God and self? When we are self-aware, we develop this conscience that tells us very clearly what our personal spiritual ethics should be. This is not based on fear, shame, or guilt, but what it means to be a true humanitarian, to care about what happens to the planet and to the people. If we are given the tools to regenerate our bodies, to open-hearted consciousness, and to regenerate DNA through acts of purification and love, then it's clear we have a deep moral responsibility to ourselves and to the planet. We cannot lose sight of that most important part of our heart, even when we may feel personal terror, when we are exposed to the knowledge of the negative alien agenda. We cannot give in to the tyranny, manipulation, and fear game. Pure love trumps it all, period. As we become more informed, as we are exposed to more alien technology, as we gain consciousness and intelligence, we cannot ever lose our loving, tender, and open heart. Our pure and loving heart is our only salvation. The human brain. The physiological function of our brain works by complex sets of electrical patterns and neurochemical processes made through a variety of impulse signals. Some of these impulses may signal our brain from environmental and external forces of frequency, or brain signals may be internally generated from our own thought frequency. It is extremely important to know that the state of one's brain frequency is what changes and shifts one's state of consciousness. When one meditates and calms their mind, they change their brain frequency and can alter frequencies throughout their body. The human brain is composed of neurons, glial cells that surround and protect the neurons, and blood vessels. The cerebral cortex is nearly symmetrical with the left and right side hemispheres that are mirror images of each other. The left and right cerebral hemispheres are interconnected by the corpus callosum, a very large nerve bundle on the crown. The hidden job of the crown chakra is to activate the corpus callosum to join the left and right hemispheres of the brain into one unified neurological and synaptic signaling function. Once the brain is unified in quality of vibrational thought pattern, the female creative feeling uniting with male reasoning into thought balance, the energy of the entire body's right side, which is masculine, and left side, which is feminine, start to unify within the brain. This process of neurological unification, brain unification, thought unification, and male and female energetic balance starts with the mind and consciousness that is focused on unification or unity. This activation of higher intelligence is the process which interconnects all layers of the complex matrices of the human body through a unified consciousness of male and female principles. When the male and female are unified within, we are able to connect to consciousness and communicate with levels of intelligence unknown to science. Neurons are the core components of the nervous system. There are approximately 100 billion neurons, connected by more than 100 trillion synapses in the human brain. Neurons are basically electrical on and off switches, which work in a similar way to the small transistors found in computer chips. Information is passed between neurons via the chemical synapses, which release neurotransmitters, which act on another neuron. Most neurons are connected via synapses to several thousand other neurons, making the brain's circuitry capable of connecting to a host of neural networks. These signals between neurons occur via synapses, or specialized connections with other cells. Neurons can connect to each other to form neural networks. The key to neural function in the central nervous system is the synaptic signaling process, which is partly electrical and partly chemical. When the synaptic signaling is interrupted through toxic electrical frequencies, such as technological mind control in low electromagnetic pulsing or harmful radiation, or the synaptic signaling is interrupted through an introduction to toxic chemicals such as mercury and aluminum in vaccinations and chemtrails, the synapse will not signal. When the synapse stops functioning and or is poisoned, the neuron will eventually die. When neurons die, humans get motor neuron and brain diseases like Alzheimer's and ALS. Have you ever felt that headache after a vaccine? That's the feeling of your immune system trying to stop the chemicals from eating your brain's neurons. Turning on synapses. Neuroplasticity, also known as brain plasticity or flexibility, is an umbrella term that encompasses both synaptic flexibility, which is the connection of neurons, and non-synaptic flexibility, which is the modification of the action potential in the neurons, which strengthen or change the neuron synaptic signaling. Plasticity or flexibility in the brain affects the strength and action of neural connections and pathways. Synaptic flexibility plays a large role in a person's ability to activate higher learning and access memory functions in the brain. This also refers to changes made in neural pathways and synapses due to the changes in a person's behavior, environment, neural processes, thinking, emotions, as well as changes resulting from shifts in consciousness. Substantial changes made in thinking and in responding to various forms of stimuli can profoundly alter the pattern of neuronal activation in response to the way a person experiences or perceives reality. This means that our direct experiences do change both the brain's physical structure, which is the anatomy, and the functional organization, which is the physiology. The brain can and does change or strengthen in response to the variety of levels we choose to perceive and think in our experiences and other types of perceptions. If we grow mentally rigid, this leads to hardening our heart and becoming extremely inflexible in our thinking, especially as we grow older. The structure of our brains can be changed by what we focus our attention upon and what we choose to give value to as priority. Thus, our brain learns by experience and is fully capable of reprogramming itself to turn on synapses and increase neuronal activity by strengthening the brain flexibility through open-mindedness. Exercising an open mind. Being open-minded means being receptive to new ideas, knowledge, and being adaptable to change. Open-mindedness also relates to the way in which people approach the views and knowledge of others. When we are open-minded, we know that others should be free to express their views and that the value of others' knowledge should be recognized. When we are not threatened or scared by others' point of view, our body and brain stays open, receptive, and relaxed. We seek to have dialogues and maintain a free information society that shares knowledge with humanitarian goals. Our goal is to stay mentally open and mentally flexible with an empathic, loving, and compassionate heart, and to allow other people to speak what they believe without instigating or condoning violence. Here are some suggestions on keeping an open and flexible mind, which is crucial to keep one's heart open. Remember, an open mind equals an open heart. Prayer and meditation. Prayer and meditation connects us to higher intelligence and has positive impacts on calming our mind. Prayer focuses on positive emotions like love, gratitude, and compassion, which allows goodness in our lives and the lives of those we pray for. Meditation reduces anxiety, stress, and depression, which helps us to find and connect to peaceful states. Being mindful improves our mental flexibility, brain elasticity, and keeps neurons active. Spiritually centering ourselves on peace, prayer, and contemplation of God or the universe helps us maintain our trust in life, faith, and relaxes every part of the body. Gratitude. Keep reinforcing the positive things that you have in your life right now. Feel and express gratitude for the people, things, and experiences that are positive, or have a silver lining for higher learning. Reinforce one's commitment to expressing love, goodness, and gratitude, and to behave as ethically as Christ would. Better understand other people. It may be helpful to practice listening to perspectives different from our own, and to allow other people to challenge and stimulate our ways of thinking. We have an incredible array of languages, cultures, and belief systems that define a variety of viewpoints on the earth. When we are able to understand other people through their viewpoint, we are more empathic to them. We can understand how they may feel. This helps us to have compassion for people and not group them into statistics, countries, religions, or some other classification system. When we classify people, we start to disassociate from the fact they are human beings, our brothers and sisters that have a right to live upon this earth peacefully. Learn something new. Learn how to think and explore your own learning patterns by giving yourself time and space for reflection. Notice how we are constantly bombarded by external forms of distraction. Our creative minds may need to stay sequestered from the formulas given by society and to seek answers in the most unpredictable places or within the silence of meditation. Do not be afraid to learn something new that requires concentration, or be afraid of deeper knowledge of one's own consciousness. Stay informed and awake. Be willing to see the things going on around you. Being interested in higher learning expands one's mind and consciousness. Trust yourself. Be aware that poor self-esteem and lack of trust in our own abilities to learn and problem solve will close our mind and harden our heart. Do not feel intimidated by knowledge, competence, or other people that criticize to shut you down. Knowing that you are a worthy, valued, and loved person, stay strong to build core self-esteem and self-efficiency, knowing that you can depend on yourself if the going gets rough. Most of the fears we dwell on never come to pass. As you focus on building the right relationship to self-acceptance and self-love, this builds trust and confidence in oneself. Building trust in oneself and building trust with God are the only two relationships that we really need. With those two relationships and ego surrender, all else will fall into place. Forgiveness. To forgive another person or circumstances is the most generous thing one can do for oneself. When we forgive others for perceived transgressions, it frees us from the bonds, entanglements, and cords which manifest painful patterns such as judgments, resentments, and anger. When we are angry, it is a very destructive emotion that increases anxiety, harms our brain, and closes our heart. Forgiving yourself from being angry is the most important action one can take in clearing self-sabotaging bonds of victimhood. Understanding the importance of forgiveness is that it brings you to the current state of now, rather than dwelling on past hurts and pain. This is incredibly positive for reaching states of open-mindedness and freer thinking to progress forward. Stay aware of balance. Know that you are a multidimensional spiritual being with a body, mind, emotions, and spirit. What areas of your multidimensional being require more attention? Keeping an open mind requires that we keep growing our self-awareness and consciousness, keep developing new interests, and remain receptive to new activities and ideas. Yet there are times we require rest, relaxation, and have to let it all go in mental stillness. Thus, as a balanced and healthy person, we must try to move in and move out of each state of rest and activity in order to receive the positive benefits of both. Our suggested command for sovereignty of brain and nervous system. Open your 12th dimensional shield. Stabilize in your core and open a vortex field if that is a part of your practice. Feel free to call upon crystal star guardians or guiding beings that are in alignment with your divine purpose. Once your shield and core feel stabilized, speak to your body, brain, and nervous system with these words. My body, I speak to you as an intelligence, and I speak to you with love. I am in charge of our God's sovereign freedom, and nothing will compromise this. I will take care of you with all of my heart. I now command my brain and central nervous system. I accept only messages that are truthful and organic to my highest consciousness in Christ. I accept only messages that support my higher good and divine blueprint in God, sovereign freedom. I permit only that which supports my highest good and divine sovereign purpose to serve my God self. I eliminate all messages that are inorganic or are harmful artificial intelligence now. Any inorganic, intrusive, or artificial messages, scripts, or impulses are evicted and forbidden now. As I am God sovereign and free, this I decree with all of my heart, mind, and might to serve my God self. Beloved body, thank you, and so it is. I seal and end my connection with love and gratitude. Thank you. Please only take what is useful for your spiritual growth and discard all the rest. Thank you for your courage and bravery to be a truth seeker. I am the cosmic sovereign law made manifest. I am God, sovereign free. Until next, stay in the luminosity of your avatar, Christos, Sophia, heart path. Please be kind to yourself and each other.